Psalm chapter 2 is the second psalm of the Bible. It tells us that people can either defy God and perish, or submit to Him and be blessed. Psalm chapter 2 does not identify its author with a superscription. Acts chapter 4 verses 24 to 26 in the New Testament attributes it to David. Text and background. In Judaism, in the general sense, Psalm chapter 2 is interpreted as referring to King David, God's anointed, defeating the enemies of Israel who gather against her. In addition, Psalm chapter 2 is often considered to be messianic, referring to the messianic era when the kingdoms of the world gather against Israel and are defeated, and Jerusalem becomes a house of prayer for the nations. In this vein, the Messiah of Psalm chapter 2 is interpreted not as David but as the future Messiah, who will restore Israel to its former glory and bring world peace. Babylonian Talmud, Sukkah 52a. Our rabbis taught, the Holy One, blessed be He, will say to the Messiah, the Son of David, ask of me anything, and I will give it to thee. As it is said, I will tell of the decree, etc. This day have I begotten thee, ask of me and I will give the nations for thy inheritance. Genesis Rabbah 44-8. R. Jonathan said, 3 persons were bidden, ask, viz. Solomon, Ahaz, and the King Messiah. Solomon, ask what I shall give thee. Ahaz, ask thee a sign. The King Messiah, ask of me, etc. In Christianity, writers such as Gunkel and Hans Joachim Krass see the psalm as a song of the Judean king himself at the festival of his accession, while Hosfeld see the psalm as merely being influenced by the Egyptian and Hellenistic royal ideology. Catholicism, according to the rule of Saint Benedict, Psalm chapter 1 to Psalm chapter 20 were mainly reserved for premium offices. This psalm was chosen by Saint Benedict of Nursia for Monday of premium office. In the rule of Saint Benedict of 530 it was recited as sung between Psalm chapter 1 and Psalm chapter 6. In the Liturgy of the Hours, Psalm chapter 2 is sung or recited in the office of readings of the Sunday of the first week, with Psalm chapter 1 and Psalm chapter 3. Every Tuesday, the followers of Opus Dei, after invoking the guardian angel and kiss the rosary, recite Psalm chapter 2 in Latin. Protestant Christianity. In Matthew Henry's concise commentary, verses 1 to 6 viewed as threats against Christ's kingdom, verses 7 to 9 as promised to Christ as the head of this kingdom, and verses 10 to 12 as counsel to all to serve Christ. In Adam Clarke's commentary, verses 1 to 3 are viewed as opposition raised against the kingdom of Christ, verses 4 to 6 as Christ's victory, and the confusion of his enemies, verses 7 to 9 as the promulgation of the gospel after his resurrection, and verses 10 to 12 as a call to all to accept it, because those who reject it will perish. In a most animated and highly poetical style, the writer, in 4 stanzas of 3 verses each, sets forth the inveterate and furious, though futile, hostility of men to God and His anointed, God's determination to carry out His purpose, the purpose as stated more fully by His Son, the establishment of the mediatorial kingdom, and the imminent danger of all who resist, as well as the blessing of all who welcome this mighty and triumphant King. Musical settings. In 1567, Thomas Tallis set Psalm chapter 2, Y Fum Thin Fight, for 9 psalm tunes for Archbishop Parker's Psalter. Psalm chapter 2 is one of the psalms used in George Friedrich Handel's Messiah, where it is featured prominently towards the end of part 2. There is a long-standing custom of standing after verse 9 in Handel's Messiah. In France, Michel Richard de Lalande in 1706 made his head motet on this psalm. Verse 8 of Psalm chapter 2 is used in the song You Said by Reuben Morgan. Controversy. English-speaking Protestant Christians commonly translate verse 12 as "kiss the Son," as in the King James Version. The most common Jewish interpretation is "embrace purity," an interpretation close to that of Catholics, who traditionally follow the Vulgate and translate the phrase as "embrace discipline." To translate as "kiss the Son," the word bar must be read as Aramaic rather than Hebrew, a Septuagint and Vulgate. Discipline, training, teaching. Some Jewish authors have accused Protestant Christians of arbitrarily choosing to interpret the word as in a different language to give the text a meaning more favorable to Christians. Protestants, however, cite other places in the Bible with isolated Aramaic words found in Hebrew, like the same word bar occurring in Proverbs chapter 31 verse 2.